Hey, Sarah J, how you doing?
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. Episode 2.
Episode 2. We have the Project Runway Canada train has left the building. How you been? What you been up to?
I have been really looking forward to this. I have been bitten by the bug. I'm excited. I feel really invigorated by the return of this series to Canada. It gives us so much to talk about. I find it really exciting.
I know that Kit just had a great piece that I think came out today. We'll link it in social about like the impact of the show on, the design industry and the careers of many designers. So maybe some of them will come on. Stay
hmm
tuned.
hmm I find myself feeling very nostalgic. As our listeners may know, I worked on season 2 and find myself feeling really nostalgic and reflecting on all of the really great friendships and just the experience overall, which is so intense, not only for designers, which I'm so empathetic to, but also for the crew. The whole show is just an intense sort of fashion boot camp, as we've said, but yeah, I'm feeling really excited to talk about it.
Before we talk about it, I have to look at your earrings because I'm distracted by how cool they are. Who
Oh,
you wearing today, Sarah? Like, are you
well,
wearing any Canadian?
I am, you know it. And actually, I forgot to shout it out last week too because I was so focused on what we had to talk about. But last week, I was wearing a couple of notable Canadian designers. One of my newer faves, which is a brand called Sample, which is available at one of my favorite thrift shops, 96 Tiers. And then my dress from last week was none other than Project Runway Canada Season 1 winner, Evan Vidal.
Ooh, well,
Yeah,
you'll have to wear Bedell again so we can do like a recap of that.
yeah. And then today I am wearing Cree designer Mobilize, so Indigenous streetwear brand called Mobilize, and then some earrings that I got in Colombia, where I was recently attending a sustainability conference to speak on fashion and sustainability. And this is a Colombian brand called Gospa. So, as you know, my favorite thing is to put together meaningful outfits, wearing my friends and wearing the designers that I believe in and try to support.
Say a little bit more about this conference. You were brought down to speak.
I was brought down to speak, and it was an academic conference. I would say perhaps the most meaningful part of the whole thing, in addition to the friends that I made in fellow speakers, was connecting with students. It's always such a thrill to connect with students, and as you know, I have a really broad, um, non-linear career behind me, and it was really, really meaningful to show some of my imagery and show some of my experiences and leverage those to be of any inspiration at all to these students. I will say that some of my upcycling resonated especially, and as you know, I'm an enthusiastic upcycler. And some of my biggest sort of red carpet moments have been when my team at Taylor S and myself have endeavored to transform a sleeping bag or a polyester bedspread into something red carpet worthy, which really, um, speaks to a lot of what happens on Project Runway.
Oh, for sure. We need only look at your CAFA outfits from, the past several years to see your amazing upcycling magic happen. I would say it's not even upcycling. It's like reimagining. Like it's amazing.
Yeah, upcycling is an imperfect word. I think as fashion continues to evolve, we don't always have quite the right words to describe what we're up to. But upcycling is what happened actually last week on episode 1. But I don't believe that word was uttered at all through the episode. But that's what we do when we take a non-virgin, textiles and materials, and we transform it from its original configuration or use into something else. And yeah, that's what we saw last week. And I'm glad to see it. I'm glad that we are incorporating existing goods as the starting point for design.
There's always some of that on the runway at FAT. I was attending the shows at Fashion Art Toronto recently, which is always so exciting. Like, and like I know Vanya's a good friend of yours, and she's done such an amazing job of keeping that fashion event alive with, like, now it's 40 designers, and it's, got the nice cachet of Toronto's longest runway or fashion week, which is so exciting. But the creativity is so inspiring. Like, there is such a wide scope of vision and what fashion means to people and how they express themselves on that runway. It's always so exciting to see.
Absolutely, I agree. And I
Yeah.
am mindful that it looks like you're wearing one of my favorite streetwear brands. Okay, okay. Am I
I
right?
am. I am.
Well done, my friend. High five to Canadian fashion.
Yeah, love it. Love it, love it, love it. Well, let's get into the episode. Like, episode 2, what are your general thoughts off the top?
Oh my goodness. Well, a real curveball hit us at the end in terms of eliminations. Wow, I found myself really, really impressed. What a strong display on the runway. I will say overall that I didn't always agree with where things landed.
Ooh, we'll get into that.
We will get into that. But I thought the judges really are providing a lot of meaningful feedback that I hope the designers can collectively learn from. As we know, this week was a client challenge, and I think something that the series does really well is sort of put forth these real life instances that we can learn from. But of course, what was different in this case and what was unrealistic in this case of a client assignment was the timeline and perhaps the order of operations. Um, what we saw here is very different from how it would go in real life.
I was surprised that so early in the season we had a non-elimination challenge.
Me too.
Like, I'm thrilled to that all of these designers all get, another week to create and design. So in that sense, like, I'm thrilled. But I was surprised that so soon that was something that happened. That was definitely, I didn't see that coming as we were coming to the end of the episode.
Me neither. But shout out to L'Oreal. If L'Oreal is who made that happen, fantastic.
We're all worth it. And it was so nice to see Kirk Pickersgill from Greta Constantine as the guest judge.
What a fantastic Canadian brand. Surely one that will be recognizable to our audience. But um, I wonder if folks would know that that brand is actually traceable back to Project Runway Canada season one.
Facts.
Facts.
Facts, facts, facts. Yeah, the brand was started by Kirk and Stephen Wong, and Stephen, of course, came in fourth in season 1. And, like, I agree, their brand is one of our kind of most globally known. They dress some amazing, celebrities and all over the world. I'm thinking of Angela Bassett in particular off the top of my head, where they've done some amazing work with her. But, like, really one of our, you know incredible success stories in terms of Canadian fashion being on the map currently.
Absolutely. What a strong, strong vision, and really embodies what Project Runway Canada tries to do, which is create runway worthy clothing. So Kirk is really well positioned to offer that type of feedback. But there's also something that his presence really symbolizes, which is worth acknowledging, which is that Kirk nor Steven in season one, they didn't win the competition, but
So true.
they have gone on to have successful brands. And I'm always mindful of how stressful an experience this is for the contestants, and really hope to illuminate the value of participating on this show overall. I
Well, it's such
definitely
a
think that.
bizarre container. Like,
Mhm.
you know, anything creative, and we talk about this all the time, you and I, but anything creative is so incredibly subjective, whether it's fashion or film or art or books or any of these amazing creative endeavors, and then to create a competition container around it is just inherently unnatural, but exciting and has greater purposes nonetheless. So, you know hooray for these people who boldly go into this really bizarre construct, in order to give us something to delight in like this.
It's really hard to compare these outfits to each other. It's really hard to compare and compete. But in artistic cases such as these, we have to bring it back to the guidelines, which in this case were to not only satisfy the client, the influencer in this case, but also to adhere to the L'Oreal Paris color palette, which, it seemed at one point that one of the designers was, moving away from, but um, we do have to sort of, stick to that creative brief. And I really felt for designers this time around because there's a lot of people to please. And
Mm.
that is one of those artificial, constructs that, in real life, it might not go down that way. For example, the sourcing piece, they were given this color palette of 4 colors, and I believe it was 30 minutes in the fabric shop to make the selection of fabric. And this is prior to even meeting the client. This is prior to presenting that client with swatches to see and feel, and most importantly, color match. If we are doing a nude bodice or some kind of underpinning that does need to be, matched to the skin, that was one of those order of operation pieces that was quite artificial in this case. And in real life, you would absolutely have more time.
Well, Aurora said something really like that struck me when they were in the fabric store because she said, "What if you change your mind?" And I went, "Oh my gosh, of course, like they're choosing like multiple fabric ideas. Like it's not like they're going in like literally on the cutting room floor are fabrics that didn't make it onto the runway. So I would imagine you have to be thinking of kind of scenario A, scenario B, scenario if you're even lucky, maybe C, like and how do you choose how much fabric? Like I'm not a sewer, so I've never had to measure and choose fabric like that. But oh my goodness, I felt the stress of having to have multiple ideas in your mind at once.
For sure. We've called this show a boot camp, but it's also very much the amazing race of fashion. You're always up against the clock. And I would say that that is generally true. For those of us who work in fashion are familiar with the 24-hour hustle. But in this case, usually there is a little bit more time to consult with the client, to get on the same page. The client seeks you out with an understanding of your general aesthetic. And there's lots of back and forth that allow you to prevent some of the misunderstandings that we saw towards the end of the challenge.
Well, and the designers come in with such different levels of experience, like literally just in like the amount of years they've been, working. And someone like Charles, who has lots of client experience, like learning how to communicate and listen and negotiate and pick up on subtleties in client work is something that really takes time to develop across any industry, but especially if it's something that you are, you know, dressing someone.
Mm-hmm. I found myself really feeling for Nemo last week on last week's runway, and I found myself feeling for her again this week too. I think that she was matched with a model who didn't necessarily align with her aesthetic. I think the model made a really difficult fabric selection in linen. Um, we all know that that linen leads to creases, and
Yep.
so I think that there were a couple of strikes against Nemo again this week that really led to the outcome and made it really difficult for her to shine. So I find myself really grateful actually that she'll get another chance to show us what she's got. And each week the challenge will play to the strengths of certain designers and play to the weaknesses of others.
I really wanted to see the cape in all of its like
I know,
glory,
I know.
like especially because it was so tied into her culture, as she was saying, and it looked like it had some really beautiful adornments up around the neckline. Like I really found myself wanting to see what her complete vision of that look would have been.
Me too. Me too.
And I felt for Little Feather too, because, she had a model who was very enthusiastic and like very kind of like here for it. But she was a very strong personality and had lots of ideas about the other things that she saw in Little Feather's sketchbook. And, she ended up kind of leading that project a little bit, I thought, which, and that's where I felt for Little Feather, because it's hard when your client is such a driver, and but it's your vision as well. You want them to feel great, but especially in this construct, like it's a designer challenge. It's not how happy is your client with what you did challenge.
When Aurora left the workroom at the end of day one, her words were poignant, and she reminded designers, be ready to pivot. And that's exactly what Little Feather did, actually.
Facts.
She pivoted really beautifully, and she did satisfy the client. And a monochromatic look is not for everyone, but I personally thought that look was very strong. I would have worn it myself. I loved the different textures. I loved the different sort of shines of the different tones of gold. I loved the sort of applique down the front. I loved the ruffles or the fringe. I thought it was quite strong and quite striking, and that just goes to show that a lot of this is subjective. It's not absolute, and I hope designers keep that in mind.
Yeah. I thought she said something that I took note of when she said to Rome, like, I love your fabric choice.
Mm,
Like it speaks to the brief, basically. Like, and how that is just like keeping the brief top of mind is still in every detail is so important.
absolutely, and being able to sell your idea, to connect your idea and your process to the original creative brief, and being able to defend it, being able to negotiate it with the client, and being able also to manage expectations. Those are all of the skills that will really set you apart as a designer, as a creative working in a creative field.
What did you think of our top three? Because I'm so happy no one's going home. So like, yay, everyone lives to see another day. Huzzah.
Well, I agreed with the top three. I thought the looks were very, very strong. Shout out also to Leland, our winner from last week. Oh my goodness, consistently strong. I think he's going to be a real contender. But I loved the top three looks. I really do, especially Rome. Um, I will say that I disagreed with the feedback about the gold corset detail at the back.
Mm.
This is on Rome's look.
Yeah, yeah. Well, because I was kind of like, yeah, I get that. I get that, Spencer. I get that, Spencer.
And I think that perhaps what could have been improved there is just the execution of that detail, and that points to, as you know, I'm a stylist.
Ooh.
I can't help but think of these details through that lens. When we take the time to press that ribbon or that lace, when we take the time to make sure that the lace is all facing, the right way, when we make
Yes.
sure that you're extra snatched at the waist and there's a perfect bow tied, then that detail is, we've done justice to that detail. In this case, you know, because of the speed that designers are working at, sometimes those details fall short. So I think that if that had been executed a little better, it might have read a little better, and we might have been able to appreciate that design feature a little more.
That is such that is such a good point, because now I'm just thinking maybe what the judges were reacting to, like even unconsciously, was the lack of finesse of that detail, especially when it was such a like the ruffles, and the like, it was so smooth and classy, and there was nothing messy about it. But then the gold ribbon at the back was a little bit messy, again due to like time and all of that stuff. But that's a really good point. I
Yeah,
would like to see it with the pressed gold ribbon.
for sure. It's absolutely not a criticism, but definitely an example of where a designer really does need a full team. And the designers in this case are doing the jobs of a full creative team. And the relationship between designer and stylist can be a very, very important one, because it's often the stylist that does that head to toe honing in of all those meticulous details, while the designer, there's a bit of a passing of the baton. Like, the designer has already created the whole thing, and the stylist in many cases is the individual who translates that onto the figure.
That's so interesting. I mean, that's not part of the industry that I'm intimately, you know, acquainted with. So, like, say a little bit more about that. Like, what else happens in that, like, synergy? Because then we're talking about kind of the relationship, but also the difference between design and styling.
For sure. Stylists, a stylist does different things depending on the context. But in a runway context, a stylist is responsible for getting the collection on bodies for the runway. And of course, that often means figuring out the accessories and the accoutrement and the art direction, sometimes even the hair and makeup, and how all of those other tools can serve as an extension of what the designer has put forth as their vision. So, definitely in the context of runway, you need an extra set of hands backstage and tying bows, tying shoes, doing up buckles, standing by with double-sided tape and safety pins and lint rollers and everything else to just make sure that that what goes out on the runway is the best that it can be. And in the case of Nemo's linen dress, I might have been inclined to gently suggest a no sitting rule. If I go to the trouble of pressing a white linen dress, please, pretty please, no sitting until this runway show is over. That would have helped.
Oh, for sure. For sure, for sure, for sure. I was just thinking about, shout out to Leland because I thought his look was amazing as well. But I do think that if he does a corset again next week, he might get some like, we need to see something more from you.
Hmm. Well, let's see. I can't wait to see what the challenge is next week. But I agree. I think that we all have our comfort zones. We all have our
Mhm.
comfort zones, and we all have those details that are, our signature. And I think that if we look at Delaine's from last week and this week, she mentions the D ring, and there actually
Yeah.
is a little D ring on the back of this beautiful piece from this week, and I'm so thrilled to see that she won. I think that her sequins and houndstooth were such an original pairing. Um, Two different textures. I was so thrilled to see such great fit. I felt like her model loved what she was wearing, and that really translated. And that's so powerful too when the person who's wearing the look really sells it.
I thought the sleeves were amazing. Like, I would have loved to have seen like a close up of like because they had such movement and the way the houndstooth was incorporated, but I couldn't quite see like how they were constructed. Like I thought Delaine's look was amazing.
Me too. I really, really loved it.
And she was so vulnerable at the beginning in one of her interviews, like sharing about her sexual abuse history and how that has, infused her with a sense of empowerment. And I thought you could really see that sense of, power in that design in particular. I thought the model looked amazing.
Yeah, I think it's not an accident that fashion as a medium is where I wound up. I think that it's such powerful armor.
Yeah.
It's protection and it's armor. And I think that really came through in her look. It was a really strong look.
I think that's one of the things that is so cool about fashion and dressing is it's inward and it's outward all at the same time. Like it can be armor as you're saying that makes me go inward and protect myself, and it's also an outward expression and desire for people to understand me or keep a distance from me because of how you see it from the outside. Like that conversation that fashion is always having with the person who's wearing it and the person who are witnessing them is endlessly exciting and interesting to me.
Absolutely, I agree.
And I thought Charles's look was pretty cool too.
Oh, I loved it. Oh, I just absolutely loved it. I loved the contrast again in the black and white textures. I loved the eyelet with that sort of wet look, almost pleather drape underneath. Um,
Hmm.
I thought the sleeves were great, not necessarily easy to wear, but of course this is Project Runway, and we're thinking about what goes on a runway, what goes on a red carpet, what's going to stand out, and I think he nailed it.
Yeah, I gotta say the sleeves didn't resonate with me the way it has with others. Like I appreciated the beautiful construction and just like those two fabrics going together, like what are you even talking about?
I thought it was really easy to see or imagine Ashley Graham in that look, for example.
Oh,
I
yes.
really I really loved because of course we see the designers providing creative direction to hair and makeup, the
Yeah.
whole hair and makeup team backstage. I loved that paired with such a voluminous, fabric heavy look that that Charles chose a really sort of wet look, sort of understated wet look hair,
Yeah.
just a gentle smoky eye. I thought it was quite understated, and instantly Ashley Graham came to mind in terms of who might suit that look.
Oh my god, I can totally see her rocking that look.
Mhm.
I can totally see it.
Yep.
Um, I was thinking as we were watching like the top 3, I'm like, now I'm thinking like, who do I think's gonna win?
Ooh. You know what? I'll tell you a story, Donna. I remember so vividly the first time that I met the participants of season two.
Mhm.
As you know, I styled the promotional photography, that iconic image of Iman in the red dress and all of the participants in their fashion blacks,
Oh, and we'll throw that up on social so people can take a look at it.
for sure. And then that other iconic image of Iman with the paper dolls
Yep.
that I remember. But we, the director and myself, went around to meet each participant, in advance of the commencement of shooting, and I got the opportunity to shake everybody's hands, and we went through everybody's outfits and got a plan. And as soon as I met Sunny Fong, I had a deep intuition that this was the winner. I
Really?
really did. I really did. And that is who ended up winning. And that was based on a couple of things. One of them was that he was wearing his own designs, and he wore this
Oh.
impeccably executed leather harness. And leather is, difficult to work with. It's a particular challenge, and this harness, not only was it interesting and original, it fit him impeccably. And I just got this sense from Sunny that he knew what he was about. He knew his own aesthetic really well, and that clarity of vision, I think, ended up translating and being central to his success on the show. But I I'm thinking of that example now because as I look at this season of designers, I don't have the same first impression, actually. I
Oh,
think
that's exciting.
there are many strong creative visions here, and I, you know, could be forced to come up with a top three or guess at a top three, but I really don't know, Donna. I think that there's more to see from other designers. We know that Leland is strong. We know that Charles is strong, but I'm also really excited to see, where Curtis goes and where some of the other designers go. So I don't know. What about you? Predictions?
I have an idea. I have an idea because I'm hesitant to make predictions, but what if we did a secret ballot?
Okay.
So what if we each so each grab a piece of paper and write down who we think our top 3 are going to be, and we'll put it in a sealed envelope, and then on our final episode when the winner is revealed and we're, dressed in our finery for the finale, we'll open our secret ballots to each other and see if either of us were correct.
Okay. I love it.
I have a little envelope right here, so I'll write it down and I'll pop it in here.
Okay. Fantastic.
Well, and maybe some of our listeners would like to do the same. Like if you want to join us in like a secret ballot moment, put it in an envelope who your top 3 were, and then, in the comments on January 16th when the finale happens, and we'll have our podcast a few days afterwards, you can see how close you were too.
Fun. I love it.
Love it. So now, I mean, everyone's back for next week. I can't wait to see what the challenge is going to be.
Me too. I can't wait. I find
I
myself really looking forward to the release of these episodes and to sitting here doing our debrief together.
Same, 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 and I'm excited to see who the next guest judge is as
Mm.
well, because that's always such a an exciting moment to see, you know, how they are part of the Canadian fashion conversation and who they are, and there's press releases out there with who they are, but we don't know who's coming next, so I can't wait to see.
Fantastic. I'm looking forward to it.
Me too. Well, until next time, my friend. Maybe we need a catchphrase to sign off with. Let's think about that for next time.
Mm. Catch.
Tim Gunn had "Make It Work." Maybe we need a catchphrase.
How about wear Canada proud?
Ooh, wear Canada proud.
Wear Canada proud.
Absolutely, friends.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to wear my Canada proud and get on with my day. Nice to see you, Sarah.
Nice to see you, Donna.
Bye.